My name's Ernie, and that Mikulski part is hard enough to say. Even the churches that I pastored for many years, I just had folks refer to me as Brother Ernie. And by the way, KVBA on my shirt, I cannot get you on the radio. Okay, that is not a radio station. That stands for Coffin Baptist Association. I work with 80 Baptist churches in East Texas as a consultant and resourcing person for them. I do a job, it's called Director of Missions, but that's not real descriptive of what I do. But that's the kind of thing that I do. And you know, when we were a year into our journey, we didn't even know what our journey was. And 13 years ago, 14 years ago, you know, they are still learning so much about this cluster of conditions. And that's part of the frustration, is that everybody looks different, acts different, feels different. And so it's you know, we talk about it being POTS or being a you know, kind of dysfunctional autonomic system, but it looks different in every case. And so I can't explain the disease, I can't explain, but what I can tell you is kind of from our journey as a family. First off, you need to understand something about me, because it is foundational to everything we've been through the last 13 years. And that is everything that we did before, during, and we will always do is based on the deep and abiding faith that Jesus Christ is our Savior and Lord. If it were not for that relationship, then the living out of other relationships would have been greatly challenged. And so but before I talk to you about what we did, I want to tell you our strength that we were able to draw on, and that was our deep and abiding faith. I did serve senior pastor of churches for about 35 years before I do what I'm doing now. I talked a lot about faith, but I want to tell you, when you get out there in the crucible, it really does work. And so I'm thankful for that. Most of you know Rachel. She is 24 years old. One day when we were living in Terrell, she was sitting on our couch and wearing a t-shirt, and she kind of leaned back and said, "Look at this." And we could literally see her heart beating through her chest, through her t-shirt, and pounding. And as a 11-year-old girl, she thought that was neat. 11-year-old girls, I'm sorry, are stupid. You know? but she thought that was neat, and it obviously it made both her mother and I nervous, is an understatement. That was kind of an isolated incident. It kind of went away. For the first couple of years, that's how we would experience these things. They'd just kind of have a spell of stuff, and then everything would be easy. We went to our family doctor, who's a great family physician. We know him personally for years, and he cares deeply about our kids and helped us raise them. And he did a great job trying to help us control this, trying all different kinds of treatments, all different plans. You've been there through some of that type of stuff. He passed us off to other specialists. My mother was one of the very first cardiac catheter nurses in North Texas. She used to work at the VA cath lab, working strictly with cardiac patients. And most of your cardiologists, if they were trained in the Dallas area, did residency at the VA cath lab. And so my mother had a personal knowledge of about 80% of the cardiologists in Dallas. So we felt like with her influence, we were getting to see the very best minds that there were 10, 11, 12 years ago. And it was just a mystery to most of them at that time. We saw pediatric cardiologists, we saw regular cardiologists, we saw electrocardiologists. We went through the ablation process, and we tried all of that, and then we would have a limited time of fairly success, and then we would go back into cycles. Rachel managed her, one of the ways as a teenager she was able to manage her condition And I wanted to just tell you, she learned a great discipline early in life to be able to do that. She is one of the, parents, you'll understand this, she is one of the most headstrong young ladies I've ever known.
Amen.
And about 75% of the time, that's a pretty good thing. And when it came to managing her condition, that was a very good thing. We didn't have to chase her around and tell her, don't do this, do that. She took control of that from a very early age. We just tried to be an encouragement to her. But one of the ways she managed it was through an exercise regimen. She became a cross-country runner, of all things. And she began running just to feel better, and then ended up not only running cross-country in high school. She was one of 2 seniors at her high school. The first time that our high school had ever sent a girls team to regional cross-country. And we got to kind of go along with the ride on that. That was fun. She got to run cross-country in college her first year, and had to give that up, not because of POTS, because of a hip injury that ended her competitive. Come on in. Ended her competitive running career, but we just, through all of that, there would be, there'd be a week where she would be down, there would be a day she'd be down, and then she'd be back. It became very frustrating for her, very frustrating for us, but you got to keep moving. You just got to keep going forward. So that's kind of our journey. Matt came along a few years ago when she was in college, and one of the things that we had prayed for all of our kids growing up was that the Lord would bring them a good partner, and it seems, he's all right. He's all right.
Kind of like it.
Do you?
Yeah.
You don't know him grows up. No,
We'll take that later.
we do feel like that's a key partnership. I think probably what y'all would like to hear from me, because I've just kind of been on this road longer than most of you, are some things that I think were important for us to do as parents. And I think this would also apply if you're a spouse, or if you're somebody who's a primary caregiver. Kind of maybe some battle plans for you. I think the first one is that you're going to have to realize that part of your role is going to be that for an advocate for the patient in your family. You just have to be. We went to, and when my wife swapped off her palm a couple of years ago, we went through it, moving phone numbers over and what we did, and it amazed us how many different doctors and medical center phone numbers we had logged in the memory on her palm. But you have to do that. You just have to recognize that there's probably nobody out there that cares as much about your loved one as you do. And that just goes with territory. So you have to be an advocate. When she was in school, we had to be an advocate with her with the school. There were times when she would have to be out because she was sick, and we'd have to go up and try to give an explanation. One of the things that we used to have to do almost every semester is have a coaches meeting, because the coaches would see her come and she'd run 5 or 6 miles, and then she would plop out and scare them to death. And so we would go down and sit down, and we would bring notes from our doctors and said, yes, she can do this. And they said, well, no, she's sick. Yeah, she's sick, but she can do this. And we had to be advocates for her to do the things that she wanted to. Just because somebody has POTS does not mean that there will be some adjustments and some limitations in life, but life is to be lived, and to be lived with joy and with celebration. So you're going to have to be an advocate. You're going to have to be a medical advocate. You're going to have to be an advocate out there in the community. At the time that most of this was going on, I was the senior pastor at First Baptist Church Terrell. We had about 500 people there. Everybody wanted to know, every time I saw them, how Rachel was doing. And so you just learn to deal with that, and you think of it as a great blessing that there are people that care and people that are concerned. And so you have to develop kind of an advocacy patience with that. But to recognize that they ask because they care. And you may be having a real